What's up, y'all? My name is Dirtbird, and welcome to an E3 video. I know this is a little bit different than what I normally put up on the channel, but I wanted to do some sort of long-form content, not just a playthrough video, so I decided to do an E3 video. This video will be split up into sections, which should be shown at the bottom of, the little bar thing that's at the bottom if you're on PC, and in the description as well. So, without further ado, subscribe to the channel, comment any of your thoughts on E3, like the video, and we'll just hop right into it. I'm going to start off with Saturday and prior, which I'm going to lump together because it's really not worth their own sections necessarily. Neither of them were super great. Elden Ring. It was a very cool trailer. Looked like your typical Souls game, which I'm terrible at, so not going to be picking this one up. Just something that I wanted to make sure to mention because I have a friend who I know she's going to love this and has already begun loving it because she got to see the trailer. If you need any sort of verification of why I'm not going to play this, just watch my less than 10 episode Sekiro playthrough that I show how terrible I am at these games. I will absolutely love watching people play this, though. It looks like it's going to be an absolute joy to play for somebody who actually likes this sort of game. Tiny Tina's Wonderlands. I'm wearily optimistic about this. The only thing that we were really shown, that at least I saw, was just a cinematic trailer, which doesn't necessarily mean anything to me. Most of this entire conference was just watching Randy Pitchford walk around a movie set and be like, oh hey, we got Kevin Hart. It wasn't anything super important. Always been a huge fan of the Borderlands art style, so a fantasy game is intriguing, but again, I'm wearily optimistic.
Borderlands fans, meet Kevin Hart.
I can't say I'm terribly surprised that they had Death Stranding and were making a remaster for it in the director's cut. Not going to talk much about it, never played it. I don't think it's a game that I'm really going to enjoy. Only thing to say is it's a Kojima game, so I'm very sad that they didn't make a reference to his Konami past with Metal Gear and that Mr. Man with the backpack and oranges didn't get into the box. Salt and Sacrifice seems interesting, but also seems like the kind of game that after this video goes up, I'm not going to remember it exists. It's just that kind of game. I'm sorry, if you like it, that's fine. It's just, I'm gonna forget about it. The art style is interesting. It's a very odd, I'll go with, decision, because I feel like the animation on the characters is very different than what I'm used to seeing, so take that as you will. And the concept of it being a multiplayer game where you can play multiplayer, but it's not 100% necessary, I always enjoy that. But having the multiplayer functionality is a very neat thing. Tales of Arise, I'm going to be honest, the only reason I'm even talking about this is because there's one line in this trailer that I can't get out of my head, and it's literally just the person yelling, "Get toasty." That's it. Wizard with a Gun, the animation style was really cool, and I have more faith in Devolver than most to provide a decent, at worst, game. I think it'll be better than decent, but interesting concept as well, so I guess looking forward to it. This is probably the biggest one that I have any sort of complaints about with Day One, and how I think that they're going to handle it. Rainbow Six Extraction. I haven't played a Rainbow Six game since the Rainbow Six Vegas games on Xbox 360, and this isn't going to change it at all. I have a friend who used to play a lot of Siege, and even he doesn't want to play this, so not a lot of positive things I can talk about here from what I've heard from people who actually like the series currently. Also, I don't understand why Predator was in the trailer. That's a bit odd. I'm incredibly worried about microtransactions in this one. Basically, you will go through this with different operatives, I believe is the word that they used, and you have a lot of them, not just the 4 that'll be on a mission with you, and if one dies, you can then go back and reclaim that operative, but you have to use a different one. That seems like gold territory for a microtransaction to be like, you could go find them, or give us $1 and we'll give them to you. Just Dance 2022. I'm just going to bring it up here instead of in the Switch conference, because I have enough to talk about in the Switch conference, I promise you. Apparently this one's featuring Todrick Hall, who I didn't know did anything besides the Virgin America in-flight safety video that is just incredibly catchy. Is this going to be on the Wii? That's really my only comment. Is this going to be on the Wii? Doki Doki Literature Club Plus. Super excited for this one, and this was the first thing I remember being really genuinely excited for. I've only seen a little bit of the game, and I know it's a psychological horror, which seems like something I would enjoy. Definitely want to make some sort of content on this game whenever it comes out. If not when it comes out, hopefully within a year time of after it comes out. Far Cry 6. I have absolutely nothing to say about the main story game. I could not currently possibly care less. I still haven't beaten Far Cry 4. I also tried to play Far Cry 1, and it's way too fucking hard. I honestly think that the DLC where you control the villains of the 3 previous games is what interests me the most in this entire trailer. I don't understand why Blood Dragon is released again, as I'm pretty sure it's already playable on all current-gen consoles. I think? Mario and Rabbids Sparks of Hope. As I said prior, because this was leaked before, even by Nintendo, I believe. I haven't played the first one yet, I own it, but the music I have heard from the game, I just love. I love Grant Kirkhope, so no surprise here, I'm going to end up picking it up. Really don't like Rabid Luma, though. I hate that. He, she, it makes me very uncomfortable. He, she, it, they makes me very, very uncomfortable. Bramble, the Mountain King. I did not like that half of the entire trailer was just the same shot. Obviously not the exact same shot, because I think there was different blood patterns. Of a small child stabbing someone, not getting this. Dungeons & Dragons Dark Alliance. I don't know how this will work with any sort of D&D lore or anything, but the game looks like a lot of fun. Solar Ash. The look and sounds of this game remind me so much of Risk of Rain 2, which isn't a bad thing, because I really like Risk of Rain 2, but I don't know if this was made by the people that make Risk of Rain 2 or not, so I don't know what that's about. I also don't understand why the protagonist attacking a obviously better rendered than blocks version of the legendary Sandbird from Mario Sunshine was about. Don't know what that was about. Core Keeper. This one reminded me of Stardew Valley, just without most of the farming and much more combat-centric. From the comment section on the trailer, which this is actually the only one that I actually read the comment section on anything, because that's a dangerous place to go on trailers and teasers and things. It also reminded a lot of people of a top-down version of Terraria, which I know I have a few friends who would be really into that. It looks like it would be a really fun game to play with a decent number of friends, but it appears to be only PC at the moment, so I'm probably not going to play it. Last game for Saturday and prior is Trek to Yomi. I'm a sucker for this setting of game. I love seeing the aesthetic and everything. It looks so beautiful. Why I desperately need to get back to Ghost of Tsushima. But this game looks great. Definitely going to pick this one up. Final thoughts on the Saturday conference. I don't understand why Gearbox had an entire conference. It was so dumb and such a waste of time. They barely showed any gameplay. They showed some other random game, I think it was Homeworlds 3, where they just were repeatedly like, it's been a long-ass time since Homeworlds 1 and 2. And that's it. That was it. And then Kevin Hart appeared for no real reason besides wanting to be like, Kevin Hart's here. There was also this weird thing, the IGN Summer of Gaming, which I believe is how I watched some trailers. I don't remember which ones, but it was terrible. So cringy. Just terrible. Forcing every joke in the book. And the last thing for Saturday. Why the hell is Ubisoft making movies and TV shows? That just focus on what you're already mediocre at before trying to jump into something else and being mediocre at that as well.
Borderlands fans, meet Kevin Hart.
Sunday, this one will be split into who was presenting, because this one had a lot more that deserved its own section than Saturday and prior, as did Monday and Tuesday. We're going to start off Sunday with Microsoft and Bethesda. I was really looking forward to this because I knew we were going to get something Starfield related, and I was very curious whether or not that was going to be an Xbox PC exclusive or not. Turns out it is. And with that, I'm just going to keep going with Starfield. Todd Howard introduced us to some pretty decent info on the game. It was more than I was expecting. Yes, we didn't necessarily see anything. It was an in-game cutscene from what I remember. The game looks like fun, but unlike other Bethesda titles like The Elder Scrolls and Fallout, I'm not going to get this day one or early at all. I worry with launch Bethesda titles every single time whether they're going to run properly. I wish I didn't have that hesitation, but it is a hesitation that I have, and Starfield is definitely on that list. 76 was another one with that. Fallout 4 I didn't worry as much, but 76 I worried a lot, and I was correct. They also gave a release date, which I didn't necessarily expect such a specific release date. I expected a generalized release date, like with titles we got later. November 11th of 22. I expected it to be about a year away, minimum, so this doesn't surprise me, but giving us the exact date 100% surprised me. Hopefully with the Microsoft acquisition, it'll be a bit more polished than other Bethesda releases. That's just... It has to be. It has to be, because this is a brand new IP. You're not necessarily just going to be able to run off of the name Bethesda, whereas the Elder Scrolls and Fallout run off of brand recognition. Starfield isn't going to have that oomph to give it extra sales. And it is Xbox exclusive, which I expected. I'll be much more curious to see if Elder Scrolls 6 is Xbox PC exclusive, as I think that one could go either way, since there is a history of releasing on both, and that would possibly do some damage to some sales numbers if an Elder Scrolls game is not put on basically every possible platform that can run it. Back 4 Blood, this was mentioned on Saturday, but I really wanted to talk about this here because I believe we got more of a show here. I love Left 4 Dead. I love it. Such a fun game, such a fun concept. I love wave-based games and things like that, so this game looks super fun. It'll be super fun to play with a group of friends if I can ever get friends, and this is how you do a spiritual successor. Remind people of the original, but don't be so blatant to just rip it off. Gonna love watching videos of this whenever it comes out and people get to play it with a group of friends instead of me, who's probably just gonna play it single player. Sea of Thieves, now starring Captain Jack Sparrow. I didn't expect that, and the next addition to the game, I'm calling it now, will be Sora, Donald, and Goofy, and we'll just have the whole Kingdom Hearts crew here. Never played the game before, but from what I've heard, it's going to be annoying to get to the area if it's not just an immediate load on the title screen. Because if you have to travel any sort of distance, people are going to completely destroy your ship. 12 minutes, short game. I think this was shown off a couple years ago, if not last year. It's the one-room game, which you can die about every 12 minutes by making really dumb decisions, or your wife can die, or random things can happen. Very interesting concept. I'll be weary to pick it up without seeing content made on it to see how it runs and operates and how everything will work. Before E3, I posted a tweet, which should be hopefully at the end of the video, where I guessed some things that were going to happen. I believe I mentioned Fallout, the original 3 games, possibly getting like a Switch port or a remaster or something. Not that, but they're coming to Game Pass for PC. And by coming, I mean they were put the day of the Microsoft conference. They're never going to come to console unless they completely remaster it, because they're going to have to do so much work to them to make them run, I'll go with competently, on a console, that I don't think we're ever going to see it on console. I'm hopeful to the degree of I want it. That's about all I can give you of any sort of confidence. Is just, I'm confident that I want it on console, so I can actually play the original 3, but that's probably never going to happen. I think this is the only time in the entire little script thing that I have that I ever mention a person's name as a bullet point, as like a topic, not just in something else. Pete Hines. I can't say that anyone's face made me more annoyed and irritated to see than him. Also, he said Skyrim, and I made a joking prediction that it was going to come to something, and I thought he was going to say it is, since he was here talking about how it's 10 years old. Still haven't beaten it. Fallout 76 Steel Rain DLC about the Brotherhood of Steel and some internal conflict releases on July 7th. The game looks like it seems to have improved pretty decently. I'm wearily optimistic to get back into it. It's another, I'm weary about a lot of things that come from E3 for the most part. At launch, it was a well-documented disaster. I even did some streams of it back in the day, and it wasn't good. I remember having a glitch where I couldn't die and just repeatedly kept getting auto-healed. I'd love to get back in the game because I know it has a lot of lore. Maybe I will, maybe I won't. The big news for this one was definitely expeditions. Going back to the pit in 2022 from Fallout 3 will be an incredibly fun thing. Especially if it's still in the same time frame. I don't think they're going to go into the future and be like, oh yeah, you're going back to the pit. You're going to just redo the entire pit DLC from Fallout 3. Being able to see what would eventually become a slaver haven in Fallout 3 so soon after the bombs dropped will be super interesting. I wonder if we'll see any of the enemies that were in the pit, but we'll have to wait till probably mid to late 2022 to see. Elder Scrolls Online, never really got into the game. There's a new DLC coming out. I don't remember if I even made my character and just quit or finished the character and quit. Don't really remember. It looks like Elder Scrolls. Maybe I'll give it another go. I think it launched poorly as well, which is Bethesda, so that shouldn't really be much of a surprise. Halo Infinite. I have only really played the Halo 1 story, and I didn't finish it. And I think I've played one of the multiplayers at a friend's house when I was in high school, so I don't have a whole lot of Halo experience. I'll probably give this a shot. The multiplayer being free is a very interesting tactic to me. There's going to be microtransactions. There's no way they can run those servers without that. I don't think that's really possible. Only real way is if the base game sales just blow expectations out of the water, and even then, it's still going to be at least cosmetics. Hopefully that's just all it is. Slime Rancher 2. I could make a whole video, probably half of it just me screaming in joy, about how excited I am for this game. I absolutely adore the original Slime Rancher. It's one of my I'm a bit stressed, I need to relax sort of games. It is so adorable, pretty easy to understand, and it's such a great game. I cannot wait to play this in 2022 when I hopefully have the next gen Xbox. I noticed new slime species and new crops, which is awesome. Brings some more added additions. I hope that we're not on the same landmass, and there's at least a slightly bigger world, or just a completely different landmass. I feel like giving that added diversity will help to separate it from the first game. And if I don't cut myself off here, the rest of this video will be nothing but me raving about Slime Rancher and how I definitely didn't scream whenever I saw the little Slime Rancher gun come up. So, next. I don't even know how to pronounce this. I'm going to be perfectly honest. I think it's the Yuden Chronicle Rising and 100 Heroes. I wasn't fully paying attention to when they named the game, and I swore it was Octopath Traveler coming to Xbox. Didn't play that, so probably not going to play this, but I can still state that the art style looks just as cool as it did in Octopath. Grounded. Even if I haven't played the game, I still want to talk about it because it's Obsidian, and I have a lot of respect for Obsidian. Haven't played the game. It was on Game Pass when I had Game Pass. Just didn't play it. It looks cool. Minus the big spider, because I hate spiders with a passion, and they made a joke about sitting, and we're like, yeah, a lot of people have genuinely told us that they want to sit down. I understand. People went so nuts whenever they could sit on a bench in Pokemon X and Y. Of course they're going to want to sit. Outer Worlds 2. I did not expect to see anything from Outer Worlds. Anything at all. I was like, okay, they're just going to focus on Grounded, and I think Avowed is the kind of Skyrim, like high fantasy game that they're working on. I expected to see that. I did not expect to see Outer Worlds 2 at all. Loved the big frilled neck lizard demon. That was awesome. Loved my frilled neck lizards. I liked that the trailer had a lot of self-aware humor and was very making fun of itself to be like, hey, we don't have any gameplay. We got this. The main character's probably going to change. Don't forget that frilled neck lizard. He's totally never going to be in the game. That was perfectly fine to me. I'm looking forward to it. Still need to beat the 2 DLCs for Outer Worlds, but it's fun. Redfall was the last thing that I have to talk about from Microsoft and Bethesda, and the only thing I really have to say are negatives. Summer 2022, that's not really a negative, that's just a fact. Aiming for relatable humor, which I'm not a huge fan of in most things, by bringing up student loans, that didn't really need to be in there. Game looks like a typical kind of wave-based shooter sort of thing, and while I'm all for it with Back 4 Blood, this one just didn't grab my attention necessarily. I also don't know for sure if it's going to be a wave-based shooter. I didn't really get what it was going to become. They weren't super clear, and it also didn't look like something I would play in the first place. All in all, I think Microsoft and Bethesda had, for me, probably the second best conference. You'll never guess who I think had the best conference based on my Pokemon profile picture. No idea. They showed a lot that I was interested in, and things that I would possibly want to get back into, with updates and things like that. So, all in all, good conference. Besides Nintendo, they didn't really have much competition, because a lot of them were kind of trash. But good job, Microsoft. And I guess Todd Howard and Bethesda. Not Pete Hines, though. Fuck you, Pete Hines. The second conference, and really the only other thing I can consider a conference, that happened on Sunday was Square Enix, where they announced a lot of things that I half care about, and that's being generous. The first thing they started with, which went on for way too damn long, was Guardians of the Galaxy. If it isn't obvious by that, I'm not going to play this. My main thing is, I'm really surprised that after the commercial failure, I believe, if not just the critical failure of the Marvel Avengers game that Square was working on, and I guess still is, because that was also mentioned later, how the hell they got to work on this, and Marvel wasn't just like, nah, we'll have somebody else do it, because that game was really bad. This was also talked about in the Switch conference, not how bad it was, this game, and it will be another one of those cloud versions, like Hitman and Control. This is a worrying beginning of a theme for me. I worry that developers are not really going to put forth effort to even bother making things for the Switch. They're just going to be like, we'll have servers for it. Which basically means you have the game as long as they want those servers to still be on. So you're closer to renting a game for $60 or whatever than actually owning it. Final Fantasy, this is just the 1 through 6. I'm not going to talk about the, I guess, side game that they announced at the end. Apparently 1 and 6 are getting mobile versions, which are pixel. They're pixel versions of 1 through 6. I believe they're also coming to Steam. I already thought 1 through 6 were on basically every platform, because I'm pretty sure I can buy those all on Switch as well right now. Definitely not how I want to play Final Fantasy. Rather not play it on mobile. Hitman Mobile, just what everyone wanted, right? From what I know, this is based on I think it was a minigame or just missions in Hitman 3. It looked like a strange sniper game. I'm not going to play it, but this is not what I think of when I think of Hitman. Can't wait for this to come to Switch as a cloud version, though. Nier Reincarnation. This is definitely not something I expected. I was nowhere near expecting a Nier mobile game. I love what I've seen of Nier so far. One of my friends wants me to actually play Nier as a video series, which, possibility. But don't think that if this is going to play as a normal Nier game, it's going to necessarily translate super well to a mobile format. So it's going to have to be different than a base Nier game, because I don't think that a bullet hell is necessarily going to work super well. That was really all that Square Enix announced that I cared about or even had any comments on. I don't understand why Crom hosted the conference, but I guess people really like Crom. It was meh. Nothing was announced that I care about in the slightest, so I'm sure that if somebody's a really big Marvel fan and really wanted a Guardians of the Galaxy game, they're fully gung-ho about this, but I could not possibly care less. Starting off Monday, we had a not conference with Take-Two. Do you hate when a game company shows games at a conference? Me too. I'd much rather sit through a panel about diversity in the gaming workplace specifically. I fully agree with the need for diversity in gaming, but I'm not sure E3 was the best time for this. Take-Two owns Rockstar. You could have just had a panel about teasing us about GTA 6 possibly being made. I think that having diversity in gaming, specifically working on games, makes a lot of difference, because then you get different viewpoints on different things. It's not just Carl the white guy. You actually have those different viewpoints, but I don't necessarily think that having this in a conference at E3 was a perfectly good idea. I'm sure they got more people to watch it than they would have if this was just randomly on some Thursday in October, but I still don't think that it needed to be at E3. What I found prior said it was going to be a panel, but this is the last thing I expected. It didn't mention anything about what the panel was going to be about. Granted, I didn't do even 2 seconds of research, I just looked it up, and I don't know why it was this. Like, anything else probably would have been better. I watched for about 10 minutes, and then when nobody said anything about any game that they were working on or there was a trailer for anything, I just left. I agree with the idea. I think having diversity than just Carl, the straight white guy, perfectly fine. But I still don't think this was the time or the place. The next conference was Capcom. I didn't know what to expect, but as the lady who I wasn't a huge fan of said, it's the 25th anniversary of Resident Evil, or the 20th. It's an anniversary for Resident Evil that ends in a 0 or a 5. I expected more than just DLC for Resident Evil Village. Speaking of which, Resident Evil Village. DLC's in the works, which I expected. I didn't think that they were just going to be like, here you go, have Resident Evil Village, we're not going to put anything in. I haven't played a Resident Evil game since they got rid of Wesker, as I need my anime antagonist. I just haven't gotten around to it. Resident Evil 5 is just the last one I've played. Haven't seen anything of this game, so I don't know if the wife getting shot by Chris Redfield is something that happens in the main game or not. Chris Redfield kidnapping a child, though, was very out of left field. The game Resident Evil RE-verse, which the only reason I'd even heard of is because a friend of mine has bought Resident Evil Village, and then saw that, I believe it was just in their game, and were like, what in God's name is this? So I did some research to help him figure out what it was. It's an online multiplayer game that is basically timed. If you remember how Nintendo did Mario 3D All-Stars or Mario 35, it's basically going to be like that, I would assume. It's going to be out for probably around a year, and then they're going to cut the servers. Just play as your favorite Resident Evil characters and go hunt each other, basically. It looks fine. I'm not going to play it. Monster Hunter Stories 2 Wings of Ruin. I don't understand why things are called Monsties. I didn't really like that. But I guess it means that they're baby and they're just called Monsties because of that. Or that's a way to split up what is an ally and what's not. I don't know. The demo releases on Switch on June 25th. I will definitely check that out. I enjoy Amiibo just a little bit. I enjoy Amiibo just a tiny bit. So if I can find these anywhere, I'll definitely add those to my collection. They showed a bit about an update on Monster Hunter Rise, a game that I haven't played yet, which I've been meaning to, but haven't really been able to buy. I know that I have a couple friends who are really enjoying this game, or just enjoy Monster Hunter in general, but this game now has stealing babies. That's all I really saw that I had any comment on, was you just run up to a creature's nest and are like, this is my egg now! Scramble! The Great Ace Attorney Chronicles. I have always wanted to play an Ace Attorney game. I love the concept. I've just never ended up playing one. I've seen a couple playthroughs several years ago, so besides the fact that there's a character named Phoenix Wright and Miles Edgeworth, I don't really remember anything. The character named Sherlock Sholmes, by far my favorite. I don't understand why it wasn't just straight up Sherlock Holmes, though, because Sherlock Holmes has been in public domain for several years now. All in all, I didn't like the Capcom conference whatsoever. They didn't show anything that either I have or am, readily, hell yeah. I had expected, if I'm being perfectly honest, a remaster or remake of Resident Evil 4. You know, the game that they release on every fucking console. I own it for the GameCube, the Switch, and I'm pretty sure I have it for the Xbox One. They've released it on everything, but apparently they're not remaking it. I expected them to after they'd remade the first three, so I kind of figured this would be, since it's a big anniversary, and the one that I hear most commonly talked about in such a high regard is Resident Evil 4. I expected that to be here, but not a thing from Resident Evil 4. The host I also wasn't a huge fan of. I think most of that had to do with the script more than anything, and the camera angle is rapidly changing, didn't help her in the slightest, and was incredibly unnecessary. We're perfectly fine just staring at one person. Have you not seen how Nintendo does directs? Much more appealing than the rapid camera angle changes or zoom-ins that they had during this. Unnecessary. Definitely not the worst conference, though. Tuesday got started off on a super high note for me, as I am such a big fan of Nintendo. Have been for years. Not saying they do no wrong, they've done a lot of wrong, but very excited. The conference started off the way that I also expected it to end, but it didn't, so I'm a little bit confused and slightly concerned that they're just going to try and pull this out as long as they possibly can. with a Smash Bros. DLC fighter. Until they told me that it was some man by the name of Kazuya, I had absolutely no idea what the hell was going on. Or why Ganondorf got tossed into lava. Still don't. I don't know anything about Tekken. Adding a fighter from Tekken isn't something that I'm surprised of at all. I would say I'm more surprised that it took this long. I'm surprised they weren't just like, okay, you can have Ryu from Street Fighter, but just completely skipped the Echo Fighter and Ken, and weren't just like, okay, here's a fighter from Tekken. Because Tekken's another really big fighting franchise. I loved the end of this trailer, though, with Kirby, where he just tried to drop Kirby into the lava, but my little pink boy just floats right back up. I'm watching the trailer while recording this, so that way I have more to say if anything comes up and I don't have it written down. I have ruined a few takes of this by the little pink puffball being there, because I'm laughing at it, because I love it. It was such a great way to be like, not 110% serious, because he literally threw Ganondorf, Captain Falcon, Pit, and Marth, I believe was all of it. Oh yeah, Min Min, and then had to kick off her spring. That was also another one. And threw all of them into the fire. So, having one that's like, haha, I'm not dying, bitch, was awesome.
Kazuya Mishima wins.
Super Monkey Ball Banana Mania. Definitely looks like something I would enjoy. For some reason, I used to have 2 copies of the Game Boy Advance Super Monkey Ball game, so I'm excited that this is ports of 1, 2, and I believe 3. I don't know necessarily if that was 3. Because the first 2 are numbered, and then the next one's just Super Monkey Ball Deluxe, so maybe that's meant to be 3, maybe there was something else there. My only, I guess, complaint is I'm curious if they're ever going to make a new Monkey Ball game. They literally said this is the 20th anniversary of Monkey Ball. The most recent Monkey Ball game was a remake of a 2006 game, Monkey Ball Banana Blitz. And then they remade it, I think for the Switch or other consoles recently. I don't remember for sure. But they remade it. Meaning that now the last 2 Monkey Ball games, for sure, have been remakes of their old games. Is this, because I believe this is a Sega property, are they just done making Monkey Ball games? I know that somebody else made Shenmue 3, and this has kind of started to be a trend with Sega, where if they don't necessarily have a desire to make a new game in that franchise, they'll let somebody else handle it. Is that going to be what ends up having to happen for there to be a new Monkey Ball game? It's not like they're making good Sonic games. That doesn't exist. Mario Party Superstars. I'm excited. This is another one, like one of the games earlier, where I'm cautiously excited. I'm still concerned, though. I like that they're bringing back old boards, and thankfully one of my friends told me that it's not just from the first Mario Party, but it's just from the Mario Parties on the N64 that they're bringing the boards back from. There's also only 5 boards, and that's just barely better than Super Mario Party that had 4. Super Mario Party was one of the few games where I would argue the only game, the only one would be possible with maybe Sword and Shield, where I'm like, yeah, I could go for some DLCs, maybe add in some more Pokemon, that sort of thing. I wanted DLC for Super Mario Party. Whether it was paid or free, and they were going to do what they normally do with other stuff, with like Mario Tennis Aces and Kirby Star Allies specifically, where they have it free, but it's very slowly rolled out to try and pad the life of the game. I wanted DLC, so there were more maps. There were 4. The minigames were okay, but they were definitely not good to play repeatedly for that long. There weren't enough. There were more 4-player minigames than anything else, which is fine, but it also felt like, and I've played Super Mario Party recently, it also feels like you do not get many non-4-player minigames. They're bringing back 100 minigames. I know how well, obviously joking there, Mario Party Top 100 did. Nobody liked it. It was a bad game. So I'm worried that they're doing that again, and it's going to be the same crappy minigames or minigames that people love handled really, really poorly. so I'm cautiously excited. It's coming out this year on October 29th, which very surprising to me. I didn't expect it to be this year. I expected it to be next year since they just announced it, but clearly they're further ahead. Everything, all the game modes are also available online, which is very nice. Cautiously optimistic. I'm curious to see if they'll do DLC for Mario Party Superstars, since all 5 boards are from the same era of Mario Party. To be like, hey, here's 5 boards from the GameCube, here's 5 from the Wii, and then probably here's 5 from the Wii U / handheld, because they can't possibly make 5 boards all from the shitty car. And if you do 9 and 10, you're going to have to redo it, because the car sucked. Metroid. I'm glad they mentioned Prime 4, basically to be like, hey, it's not canceled, we're still working on it, because I think that there were definitely some people who were like, I think Prime 4 has been canceled. But again, I've never played a game in the franchise, I've never played a Metroid game. I own, I believe, 2 of the Prime games, and I believe the original Metroid on the 3DS eShop. Dread will be a 2D Metroid, not a 3D, and it looks interesting, but probably not going to buy this one. I'll be more likely to watch somebody play this. I do have a friend who loves Metroid to the point that he tends to not shut up about Prime 4 every time a conference comes up, and he's super excited and pumped for this to come out. So if I can base all opinions on his for Metroid fans, I think Metroid Prime, or Metroid fans in general, are excited for this, but obviously still want Prime. Mario Golf Super Rush. I'm not terribly surprised that we saw this. I still wish they'd just be like, hey, it's coming out, and not really showed anything, but it's coming this month, so I knew something about it would be here. I love how the part that they've talked up so much, the one where you golf and then run around after the ball, and they've hyped it up the entire time of it being 4-player. But it's come out, I don't know if it's been from Nintendo or from somebody else who's already got their hands on the game, that you can only play 2 players on one console. So if you're playing 4-player, you have to have 2 separate Switches. I'm not terribly surprised, because, you know, the Switch isn't the most powerful thing in the world, but it's still something that I think they should have mentioned before now. It still looks like fun coming from someone who's never played a Mario Golf game, though. I like golf games that aren't taking themselves too seriously, so I'll play it. It is basically confirmed, though, with their more courses are coming and free DLCs coming, that they're going to do the same thing they did with Mario Tennis Aces and Kirby Star Allies, where it's just going to be slowly trickled out instead of all being in the game at once. WarioWare, get it together. Another series I've never played, but I was wanting this to be here so badly. I have wanted to play a WarioWare game for so long. I got the survey from Nintendo not that long ago, asking about WarioWare and like how much I'd spend on a WarioWare game, so I kind of was expecting something WarioWare to be here. I just wasn't sure if it was going to be a brand new game or a remake of an old game or like a WarioWare collection. I have loved watching people play this game and how hectic it is and everything. I hope that I'll get the chance to play it, especially if I get to play it with some friends, because this could get real hectic real fast.
Testing. Mic check 1, 2. This is a test of the school broadcast system.
Danganronpa 1, 2, and 3, and I believe they had said a mini game that was in 3, are coming to Switch and being remastered or ported to Switch. This excites me so much. I've wanted to try out these games for so long. I've seen very minimal on them to be like, okay, I'd enjoy this. It's kind of a detective series, so it looks like fun, but with an anime art style. It looks like fun. I would love to play it. Super excited for this. And now time for the Zelda-gasm section, because God, I love Zelda. Started with Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity DLC news. I'm still working on the original Hyrule Warriors, but I got this as a Christmas present from a friend of mine. This looks so cool, the additions that they've added. Being able to play as a Guardian, I love it. I hope specifically when you get to play as a Guardian, they play the Guardian music from Breath of the Wild. Also being able to rip off its legs and use it as like a mace, that seems pretty cool. And being able to see Zelda on Link's bike from Breath of the Wild, I like that a lot. I think that this series as a whole is pretty cool. Yes, it's just a Dynasty Warriors game with Zelda characters, but this one especially actually giving story to before the Calamity in Breath of the Wild is really neat. I think being able to play as Zelda is really cool, and hopefully that'll be in a later game, but who knows. Here's the big one for me. Well, one of the two. The Legend of Zelda Skyward Sword. This game means so much to me. If you didn't know, on the first channel I ever uploaded content on, I uploaded a very poorly edited series of The Legend of Zelda Skyward Sword. It's the first Zelda game I ever completed. It holds a very special place in my heart. I'm still glad they didn't spend much time on this, since it's a remake of a game that came out on the Wii. I'm super excited about this, though. Nothing seemed super new or anything. I think it was stated that you can only play with sticks, basically, not motion controls, if you're in handheld mode. Which, if that's the case, I don't like that, because I would have loved to play this with just a controller, not with motion controls. This will 100% be a series on the channel once something finishes. This will 100% be here. This game means the absolute world to me. The Zelda Game & Watch. I know that this is probably more of a niche thing. I'm very curious why they've decided this is what they're doing for anniversaries, instead of being like, here's more games to play on a console. Being able to play Zelda 1, 2, and Link's Awakening in something that will fit in everyone's pocket is interesting. The Vermin game is just about as offsetting as Ball was in the Mario one. I got it as a Christmas present as well. Definitely a neat little trinket. Definitely a collector's item, though. I'm glad they chose the games that they picked, and the playable clock is interesting. But I don't know why this wasn't a slot filled for ports of Wind Waker HD and Twilight Princess HD. I don't understand why those aren't on Switch yet. Here's the real long one. Breath of the Wild 2. I absolutely adore the original Breath of the Wild, so this was very exciting. Beginning basically starts out, Link's arm gets partially attacked, I guess, by the goo, which I would assume is just the calamity from Ganon that was in the original Breath of the Wild. Zelda fell in a hole. I'm very curious if the skeleton thing is eventually going to turn into Ganondorf. I hope so, at least, because I would love to have fought Ganon in the first one, and then Ganondorf in the second one. But if they want to go all the way back to the original, you fought Ganon, pig man form, in the original, and then fought Dark Link in Zelda 2. So maybe they'll do that. I kind of doubt that. It wouldn't surprise me if they make a nod to that in some way, shape, or form, where Dark Link is a boss at some point. I'm very curious how early into the game Zelda falling into a hole is going to be, or if this is just a dream or something. The first shot of Link falling through the sky looks a lot more like Pit, like just the attire, like that sort of era than I would have expected. I like that the hair is not all tied up immediately. Like, that reminds me a lot of my hair. Very interested in the Sheikah Slate becoming a sleeve thing. That's very interesting, and a very interesting way to do that to make improvements to what was already there. I wonder, however, how you're going to be able to check your inventory, because it's not going to be on your arm. They're not going to be like, oh yeah, you have a Pip-Boy like Fallout. They're not going to do that. I love the water stuff going up to the sky. That seems like a very good way to do it, instead of being like, oh yeah, your bird's back from several hundred years ago. If the water's how you get up to other platforms consistently, or it's just a gust of air, I guess. That's a very cool idea. It's not like they're new, or the Zelda series at all is new to being in the air. Skyward Sword, which comes out early next month, you're literally in the air the entire time, so makes sense. The castle getting ripped up from the ground also makes sense with the sky being added. I was very curious how they were going to expand Breath of the Wild 2, because the original Breath of the Wild had so much good land that was built up to be important, and every landmass had its points and its reasons for being there. So I was curious how this was going to affect anything along Breath of the Wild 2. So adding the sky makes it so they don't have to necessarily completely rework the ground or make the ground much bigger. I like that. 2022 release date is looking really cool. I'm glad for that. I hope it's not when I think it is, because I am 110% expecting holiday 2022. Maybe E3 next year, we'll get the rumored Switch Pro, and it'll be released alongside Breath of the Wild 2, like the base Switch was released alongside Breath of the Wild 1. All in all, I'm very, very excited for Breath of the Wild 2. The last quote-unquote conference we're going to talk about is Bandai Namco. I had a friend who was really looking forward to possibly seeing more of Elden Ring. Instead, this turned into one trailer that I remember seeing at a different conference that's about some game in the Man of Medan series. The Man of Medan is just one of the games. I think it was Medan, maybe Medal, I don't remember. I was hoping for maybe possible information of a DLC for Taiko no Tatsujin on Switch. Either of them, I guess. Because I guess technically the adventures are together if you buy it together. Or anything more than one trailer for a game that I don't know anyone who gave a shit about in the slightest. You don't have a conference for one trailer that was already shown. Arguably, this was worse than the diversity in gaming thing. This was the worst conference. To wrap this up, I'm going to go over basically if any of the things that I wanted came from this. I had tweeted on June 11th, a couple days before E3 started, what I was looking forward to or hoping, anything at all. They showed minimal of Skyward Sword, which is what I wanted. We surprisingly got absolutely nothing Pokemon related, and with there being 2 games, technically 3 I guess, coming very soon, I'm surprised, and I guess that means that there's going to be a Pokemon Presents that'll be separate to E3. We got absolutely nothing from Animal Crossing, which really surprised me. I was like, oh, we're going to get an update of some kind. Absolutely nothing from Fallout coming to Switch. We got Starfield news, nothing from ES6, which doesn't surprise me. Skyrim did not get ported to a toaster oven. Nothing New Vegas 2 or an Obsidian Fallout. Still surprised that there was no Wind Waker or Twilight Princess to Switch. NSO I could rant about in a whole nother video, which I might actually end up doing. We got nothing. We got one Smash Fighter, new Mario Party. We didn't get Mario Kart 9, which is fine. We got Outer Worlds 2. Kingdom Hearts didn't come to Switch, and absolutely nothing Golden Sun related. All in all, not a bad E3. Not my favorite by any means, but not a bad E3 at all. Nintendo, again, I'm very biased in my opinions. Nintendo did so much better with what they were announcing than I think anybody else did. Microsoft and Bethesda, that shared conference was right behind them. Really, really good. Obviously, I'm going to prefer Nintendo's because I absolutely adore the Zelda franchise, so that doesn't surprise me at all. And Skyward Sword was mentioned, so really doesn't surprise me. Decent year. I think we've got a good year of gaming coming up. I'm still surprised there was no Switch Pro or Switch Revision or anything announced. Granted, there have been those rumors for several years, but I think we're on year 5, maybe more, of the Switch's life cycle, and that surprises me so much that the only other thing we've gotten is the Switch Lite, which isn't really an upgrade. It's closer to a downgrade because you can't connect it to a TV. Pretty decent E3. Thank you all very much for making it all the way through this video. I appreciate it from the bottom of my heart. I'm very glad that you made it, and I hope you enjoyed. I will possibly be making more of these in the future. Maybe I'll do it for Nintendo Directs down the line. I plan to make more long-form, bigger editing project videos also in the future, not just conference-related. We'll get back to your regularly scheduled program this weekend. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you later.